This video is on digestion, and if you haven't already done it, it's worth going and watching the video on the anatomy of the digestive system, which is going to really help you understand this process in more detail. So digestion is actually the breakdown of large insoluble food molecules into small water-soluble food molecules so that they can be absorbed into the watery blood plasma. In other words, it enables you to get the energy out of your food as well as the vitamins and minerals. And digestion occurs in two different ways. There's mechanical digestion, which is the actual physical process of breaking food down into smaller pieces. And the aim of mechanical digestion is to increase the surface area of the food so that digestive enzymes can do their job more effectively. Now, this occurs in the mouth when you chew food with your teeth and crush it with your tongue. It also occurs in your stomach where muscular movement squashes and mixes your food. Now, the other type of digestion is chemical digestion, which is the process where enzymes break down complex substances into their simplest forms. And this involves breaking down macromolecules into their smaller components, such as carbohydrates into glucose, proteins into amino acids, and lipids into glycerol and fatty acid chains. The digestive system has four main roles that occur in different parts of the gastrointestinal tract, each of which has specialized structures to do their job. And these are 1. Ingestion, which is the intake of nutrients. In our case, when you put food in your mouth, otherwise known as an oral cavity. Secondly, digestion, when complex molecules are broken down into smaller components through both mechanical and chemical processes. Thirdly, absorption, where the digested molecules are taken into the internal environment of cells within the digestive tract. And finally, fourth, egestion, which is the removal of waste materials from the body. So let's look at these steps in a little more detail. So most animals, just like Kung Fu Panda here, take food in through the mouth. And this is where mechanical and chemical digestion begins. So molar teeth at the rear of the mouth help to grind food into smaller pieces. The tongue helps to move this food around the mouth, which increases its contact with the teeth, further breaking it down. There are saliva glands that are situated near the base of the tongue that secrete the enzyme amylase, and amylase chemically breaks down complex carbohydrates such as starch into simpler carbohydrates such as maltose. Chewing food with your teeth increases the surface area of the food, so the amylase can actually make greater contact with the complex carbohydrates and break them down. After that, digestion occurs. When food is ready to be swallowed, it is moved to the back of the mouth and is pushed through the pharynx, or your throat, with the help of the tongue. From the pharynx, swallowed food and liquids pass into the esophagus, which is a muscular tube leading to the stomach. And the opening of the esophagus is very close to the opening of the trachea, or your windpipe. And as such, there is a small flap of tissue called the epiglottis, which closes off the trachea and prevents food from entering the respiratory tract. You may have heard the expression, the food went down the wrong pipe. That's what they're referring to. The esophagus is lined with layers of smooth muscles that contract in rhythmic waves, forcing food to move down the esophagus and into the stomach. And this rhythmic movement of muscle contraction is referred to as peristalsis. The stomach, which is a J-shaped muscular bag, is about the size of a large sausage when empty, but can expand to hold as much as 3 or 4 litres of food, which is quite remarkable. There are circular muscles called sphincters, which will regulate the movement of food into and out of the stomach. The sphincter at the top of the stomach is called the lower esophageal sphincter because it's at the bottom of the esophagus, and the one at the bottom of the stomach is called the pyloric sphincter. And you can think of these muscles as drawstrings that just simply open and close those openings. So both mechanical and chemical digestion occur in the stomach. Food in the stomach is still quite large at this stage, and the muscles and the walls of the stomach contract and relax to allow the enzymes in the stomach easier access to the surface of the food. The stomach does not absorb many nutrients. It does absorb some salts and water though. When food first enters the stomach, It stimulates the secretion of gastric juice from cells lining the stomach wall. And gastric juice is a mixture of water, mucus, salts, hydrochloric acid, and enzymes. And the presence of hydrochloric acid makes the pH of the stomach around 2 to 3, which is really acidic, but it's the optimum pH for digestive enzymes in the stomach to operate. Now, these enzymes break down long chain polypeptides of proteins into smaller chain polypeptides. The gastric juice itself comes from different cells housed in gastric pits that line the stomach. The cells that line gastric pits include mucus cells that secrete mucus, parietal cells that secrete the hydrochloric acid, and chief cells that secrete a protein that eventually becomes pepsin. And pepsin is an enzyme that digests proteins. The mucus secreted in gastric juice acts to protect the epithelial lining of the stomach from being digested by the enzymes because the cells that line the stomach also contain protein. Food stays in the stomach for up to 6 hours until it resembles a soupy substance known as chyme. Small amounts of chyme squirt through the pyloric sphincter that links the stomach into the upper part of the small intestine. The next stage is absorption, which occurs in the small intestine, a tubular organ that completes digestion and absorbs nutrients. It is the longest organ in the digestive system at 3 to 7 meters in length, and it's narrower compared with a large intestine. The small intestine contains 3 major regions. Firstly, the duodenum, which is the first 25 centimeters of the small intestine, and glands on the wall of the duodenum secrete mucus that protects and lubricates the small intestine. Ducts from the accessory organs, the pancreas and the liver, also open into the duodenum. The second, which is the jejunum, which is a 2.5 meter long tube that absorbs most carbohydrates and proteins. And thirdly, the ileum. The third section is the ileum, which is a 3.5 meter long tube that absorbs most water, fats, vitamins, and minerals. The intestine is lined with millions of villi, which are tiny finger-like projections that absorb nutrients. And the surface of each of these villi are covered with microvilli, little bristles that are an extension of the cell's membrane. Villi and microvilli increase the surface area of the gut lining, which increases the efficiency of absorption. Within each villi, there are blood-filled capillaries that absorb digested carbohydrates and proteins, and also lymph capillaries that absorb digestive fats. The blood in the capillaries absorb nutrients and transport them to the liver. The small intestine absorbs water, minerals, free amino acids, cholesterol, and vitamins without further digestion. Most molecules in food, however, require additional processing. Cells lining the wall of the small intestine release digestive enzymes that break down short polysaccharides and disaccharides to release simple sugars, which the intestine can then absorb. And these enzymes are called carbohydrases. Most of the digestive enzymes in the small intestine come from the pancreas, an accessory organ that sends about 1 litre of what's referred to as pancreatic juice to the duodenum each day. And pancreatic juice contains enzymes that include trypsin and chymotrypsin that break down polypeptides into amino acids, pancreatic amylase that digests starch, pancreatic lipase that breaks down fats, and nucleases that split nucleic acid such as DNA into nucleotides. Pancreatic juice also contains sodium bicarbonate, and sodium bicarbonate is an alkaline chemical which neutralizes the acid from the stomach. The lipase enzyme that act on fats are water-soluble and fats are not. Think of the way that oil sits on the top of water in a salad dressing due to the hydrophobic nature of the fat molecules. And this poses a significant problem for the digestive system, as lipase can only break down fats where they contact water. To solve this problem, the liver, a large accessory organ, produces bile. And bile is a greenish-yellow biochemical that disperses the fat into tiny globules suspended in water. This mix is called an emulsion, and it increases the surface area exposed to lipase. The gallbladder is an accessory organ that stores the bile until chyme triggers its release into the small intestine. Gallstones can actually form in the gallbladder, and gallstones occur when cholesterol in bile crystallizes, forming a hard stone. And the stones can partially or completely block the duct in the small intestine, and they sometimes have to be surgically removed. The liver's other functions include detoxifying alcohol and other harmful substances in the blood, storing glycogen and fat-soluble vitamins, and synthesizing blood-clotting proteins. The liver receives blood that is full of nutrients from the intestine. It removes bacteria and toxins and also claims the first nutrients before they're pumped to the rest of the body. Material remaining in the small intestine moves on next to the large intestine. The final stage of digestion is egestion, which occurs in the large intestine. And this is a 1.5 meter tube that extends from the ileum to the anus and forms a frame around the small intestine. Its diameter is larger than the small intestine, and its main functions are to absorb water and salts and to eliminate the remaining compacted wastes as feces. The large intestine consists of two main parts, the colon and the rectum. The colon forms the majority of the large intestine. It absorbs most of the water, electrolytes, and minerals from chyme. Bacteria present in the colon produces vitamin A and K from undigested matter, and these vitamins are then absorbed into the lining of the large intestine. The remnants of digestion consist of mostly bacteria, undigested fiber, and intestinal cells. Peristalsis pushes waste through the large intestine into the rectum, where they collect as solid or semi-solid feces. When the rectum is full, receptor cells trigger a reflex that eliminates the feces through the anus, and then you're ready to fight another day, having extracted all of the nutrients from your food.